Hey guys, long time no see. Posted a video yesterday evening and got a ton of really great interactions. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit confused about how I'm going to be able to just wait a week to post videos. I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. We're playing this by ear. I'm just getting started on this, as you know, so I'm not really sure. I think I will just have to fly by the seat of my pants and post videos when I feel like it is pertinent. I had a really hard time waiting all week to be able to create that last one that I did yesterday, and so today I want to talk. It's interesting, I'll just go ahead and say this, that in the last year I have had the interactions with doctors and therapists and such to find out that out of the 6 kids that I have, at least 3 of them have ADHD and autism and Tourette's. So all of those things kind of go hand in hand with some neurodivergences that I have. And one of them is trauma and info dumping. And I have always been, I'm very, very high functioning. I've never been tested or anything, so this is like total like self-diagnosis. I have no idea what I have, what kind of variation of anything that I have. What I can say is that I thought I was fairly neurotypical, and everything that my kids did that is neurodivergent, I thought it was very normal. And I'm not saying that offensively, I just meant that I thought that was everybody did these things, and because I did them. And so I thought, yeah, they're totally just common kids being kids, and this is what everybody does, and everybody taps things, and everybody info dumps, and everybody the various things that we have in common. And then all of this information started coming out. I started researching, started studying, and I found out all of these symptoms that my kids have of their autism and ADHD. I have a lot of them too. And so it's interesting to go, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's kind of where I'm at right now. I have talked a lot of these topics to death already, but I still feel that need to continue to project them upon anyone who is willing to listen to me. And so therefore, here we are. So I don't know if that helps you kind of understand a little bit about me and why I do things the way that I do. I still don't understand me and why I do the things I do. So we're kind of on the same page here, but you know, I just think it's kind of funny. So here we are. I'm going to do another video right away. The reason is because I posted the video yesterday, and in one of my confessions, I talked about how I really hated the temple. I hated going because for various reasons. One of the things was that it's just such an expense to me. And somebody commented in the comment section on TikTok saying that she wasn't aware that the temple cost anything. That's actually like a super good question. I did answer her a little bit in the comment section. I didn't feel like it was something that was like a baited question or a controversial question. However, I can see how if you are somebody who grew up in Utah and you aren't aware of some of the situations that can cause a lot of an expense for a family regarding the temple, how that would be kind of like a shock. Like, really? It costs money for a family to go to the temple? And so therefore I kind of felt like it was something that deserved its own video, and I want to talk about it now. So here we are. I'll just go ahead and say, first things first, in order to attend the temple at all, you have to be paying tithing, which is 10% of your income. And that's going to be different for everybody. For me and my husband, up until the day we left the church, we were full tithe payers, meaning we paid our full 10% on our entire increase, which for us was on our gross pay, not our net pay, not what we brought home, but what our gross overall total was that we earned. And for us, based on our taxes, was roughly about $78,000 together. We both work. So, give or take a little bit, that comes down to about $7,800 for the full year is what we paid. So roughly close to about $8,000 is how much it cost us to have access to the temple for the year. It's like if you don't go to the temple, if you don't attend regularly, it's a little bit like having a bad gym membership that you never use. So something to keep in mind there, just a little bit of a ex-Mormon humor. But that is an expense. I do consider tithing an expense. Tithing is literally a fee that you pay to the church to let them allow you to have access to the temple. You have to be paying a full tithing in order to go to have a recommend to attend the temple. Now, with that said, I grew up in West Jordan, so there was always a temple nearby, plethora of temples. I know that the Jordan River has always been nearby the house where I grew up. Also, the Salt Lake Temple. Pretty sure the Bountiful Temple was there. I don't remember when the Draper Temple was built, but I know that it was somewhere in the vicinity of my childhood. And then by the time I left West Jordan and went to New Jersey, where I lived after I got married, they were building the Oquirrh Mountain Temple. So there were a plethora of temples very, very near me when I was growing up. Now, after I had my first baby, my husband at the time, he was active duty Air Force military. We were moved to New Jersey. New Jersey's closest temple is the Manhattan Temple. I went there one time. I was very pregnant with my son. He's my second child. So I had one already, and then I was pregnant with him. It was 2006 because that's when he was born. My daughter at the time, I don't remember exactly where in my pregnancy I went. I was pretty pregnant. He was born in July, so I'm pretty sure it was in 2006, and she was 15 months when he was born. So she was probably around a year old, maybe a little older, maybe a little younger. I don't know for sure. But I had a child. So the logistics of, and I don't really need anybody to go and look up details or whatever and correct me. My son is 18 now, so this was 18 years ago. I did look up the distance from the temple to where I lived on the base. It's about a 2-hour trip. And with that in mind, we did not drive there. Because if you've ever been to New York City, and we had been to New York City multiple times, we've been to the Statue of Liberty, we went to Central Park, we did multiple things in New York City, and it's an awesome place, super fun to visit, but it is like hell to drive there. I would not have known where to go, and at the time we didn't even have GPS. They didn't have, you could buy a GPS separately, but we didn't have that on our phones. Phones were flip phones. And the best that we had was MapQuest, where you could print it off, and it was wildly inaccurate. It would tell you to turn down a one-way road going the wrong direction and stuff. So we didn't drive. We took trains. We drove to New York where you could get to a train station, and then we took multiple trains where we had to connect in a couple of different places to get to Manhattan, and then we walked a certain distance in order to get. I don't remember the details. It's been too long, and I just don't care that much. Now, with the 2 hours and then the trains, And then you spend about 2 hours in the temple because you get there, you change into your temple clothes, and then you're in a session, which I want to say is like an hour and a half total. I don't know if that's totally accurate. It kind of just depends on the size of the session. I know they've shortened it recently, but over time. But in 2006, I think really you could expect to spend about 2 hours in the temple. And so then you get out of the temple, and then that's another 2 hours drive back home from New York City. That doesn't include the trains that we had to take from Manhattan back to wherever it was that we parked our actual car. So keep that in mind. And I remember we went to dinner after that, and we took our daughter after we got back. We went to dinner, and it was funny because at dinner, I was very pregnant, remember, and I ordered like a cocktail, a virgin cocktail, and they brought it to me, and I was drinking it, and I was like, this doesn't taste right. And like, I let my daughter drink it and everything. And then we were like, oh my gosh, it was an alcoholic drink that they brought me after I ordered a virgin drink. And I was very, very heavily pregnant. I remember I was very visibly pregnant, and it was kind of funny. Like, Lily was fine. It was just a sip. She didn't drink the whole thing. We just tried it each, and it really wasn't a big deal. But it was kind of funny because we had just gotten back from the temple. Now, and I remember during that dinner we talked about, well, are we going to go back to that again? Like, that was kind of cool to go to Manhattan and see the temple or whatever, but are we going to do it again? Probably not. It took us a solid 8 hours. Now, you have to think about this. This is what we did for fun at that time. I was 22 when I was pregnant with my son. I had my husband was an E3, which is enlisted, like the 3rd degree. I don't remember exactly the terms. It's been a long time since we were active duty Air Force. He was an E3, so we really didn't make a lot of money. To put it into perspective, we didn't have a lot of money, and what we did for fun was we would drive to the mall, which was about 45 minutes from the base, and we would go to the Godiva chocolate store and get each of us and our daughter a chocolate, and then we would walk around the mall and just kind of window shop. We never had any money to buy anything. So that's what we did for fun. That's how destitute we were. And at the time, we were in New Jersey. We were in the military base. We did not have family that lived nearby, and we had somebody babysit our daughter. It was 8 hours, and this friend of mine, she let me pay her less than what I would have been expected to pay a babysitter for, the day. I think I paid her $5 an hour. It was about $40 is what it cost for her to watch my baby. She wasn't even, I don't even think, a toddler yet, just barely a year-ish old. And they're a lot of work at that age. So I paid her $40, and this is something that was a huge sacrifice for us at the time to pay. From there, we moved to Alabama when my son that I was pregnant with at that time, he was 9 months old. So we moved to Alabama. While I was pregnant with my 3rd child, we went to visit the Birmingham Temple. Now, the Birmingham Temple was an hour and a half away from where we were at on the Gunther Air Force Base. And that time, this is what we did, was Alabama was a much, much harder place to live for me. I did not make a lot of friends there. The South is very, most of our friends were made through the church. Same with New Jersey. They weren't made through the military, they were made through church. And New Jersey, it was a lot easier to make friends. Alabama was very difficult to make friends because they talk about Southern hospitality, and it's true. People are very polite to your face, but it's very difficult to get into a kind of a clique. It's difficult to get into a friend group. They'll talk to you and chat with you and kind of be nice and have niceties, but I cried every single day I was there. I had no community. So we got this girl who was, I think she was like 14 years old, and she was from our ward. And I didn't feel very safe leaving my children, who were, I don't know how old they were exactly, because I was pregnant with my third. We were only in Alabama for a year, so they were under two under two. And her mom was, they were not military, so her mom was not somebody that was reachable. She would not be able to get onto the military base at our house. And, you know, I don't remember whether there was a reason or not that we didn't take our kids to her house. That's a possibility we could have done too, I guess. I don't know. I didn't feel comfortable either way. The thing is when you're in the temple for that 2-ish hours, you cannot be reached. You cannot answer your phone. There's no way to reach you. And so it was nerve-wracking for me as a young mother with babies under 2 and leaving them for a 2-hour drive, and then another 2 hours without contact, and then another 2-hour drive back, so 6 hours total-ish, with a teenage girl, not knowing whether I would be able to be reachable if there was an accident, and not even be able to get home quickly if there was an accident, and not having her mom even be able to reach her if there was an accident. So that was really nerve-wracking to me. So we actually hired her. We brought her with us to the temple, and we made sure that they just basically played on the temple grounds, which I'm not sure is really a better situation. I don't know. But it's what I felt more comfortable with. And there was a matron at the temple who was aware of their presence. And so she knew that if there was an issue, she would be able to reach us. And she knew they were there. They could come in. They let her use the little lobby to be able to play some games with them, to read some books to them, to change diapers and things like that. And I was really grateful for that. I had called ahead before to make sure that was okay. And they luckily were willing to accommodate my kids. We paid her. I don't remember how much we paid her, but we also stopped and got lunch at Olive Garden. And then we drove back home. She was with us for 6 hours watching our kids. So with all of that said, after we left the military a year later, moved back to Utah, and we moved to the beautiful place of Tooele, Utah. Most Utahns don't even know where Tooele is. We are on the other side of the Oquirrh Mountains, just south of the Salt Lake. In fact, I can see the Salt Lake from where I'm sitting right now. We don't have a temple in Tooele. We do now. There are open houses going on right now. But we did not have a temple in Tooele during the last 17 years that I've lived here in Tooele. So we've had to drive out to the valley now. Salt Lake is shorter distance. It's probably about a 45 minutes from where I live. But that was a live session, so that took longer. Whereas the video sessions over at Jordan River or something were faster. So you have to consider this, okay? Even though we are in Utah now, we live closer to the temple. It's 45 to 60-minute drive. That's still 2 hours. Another 2 hours in the temple-ish. That's still 4 hours. Then on top of that, at this point, by the time I got divorced from my ex-husband and remarried, from there I had 5 kids. With my new husband, I had 6 kids. Now, it did get a little bit easier when my older kids got more able to babysit on their own, but I still paid those kids. I tried to never expect free babysitting that was more than just like running to the store, that kind of a thing. They are not parents. They're not my children's parents, and so I tried to treat them fairly that way. And again, there's still gas involved, and when you drive that far out and you're gone for 4 hours, you make it a date, you go to dinner. It's fine, sure, but there is that cost. There's gas, there's food, there's the tithing, and all of that adds up, and the babysitter fees, that all adds up to be an expense for a family. And Not to mention the emotional costs, because like I said, when you're leaving your children for several hours and you are not reachable, that is an emotional cost. That is something, that is an expense to me that caused me a lot of anxiety, to where I wasn't sure if I would be able to get a hold of my children, or if they would not be able to get a hold of me if there was an accident and a problem. Now, this is all still very first world, first world Mormon kind of problems. There are people who live in a lot of other countries where you have to travel for days and you have to stay overnight in a hotel or something like that in order to go to the temple. So that adds to the expense. You have to travel sometimes. You have to take a plane. That's a massive expense. And some people in Utah or other states or whatever, like even if you have to travel a little while, might say, well, it's an expense I'm willing to pay because, I love the temple and we make covenants there and it's really important to me and it's just like going on a date or whatever. And that's fantastic for you. Like, I am not trying in any way to put that down. That's great. And if you love it, then by all means keep doing that. Maybe you have your in-laws or your parents who are willing to babysit, so you trust them and your kids will be safe. That's not always the case for everybody. It wasn't realistic for me either. My parents, my in-laws, they don't live in Tooele. They live in Draper and West Jordan. So going and driving all over the valley just to be able to go to the temple, like, it's just crazy. It's just not realistic. So that wasn't a thing for us, at least not all the time. So that's something to keep in mind. I mean, it just depends on what is worth it to you. I went to the Scottish Festival this summer and I dropped $200 on souvenirs and authentic fish and chips, and it was fantastic. I got my kids in, I got food. It was so much fun and it was awesome, and that was worth it to me. But frankly, the temple and I mean, at the Scottish Festival, I could answer the phone anytime I wanted to, and my kids could get a hold of me if they needed to. They were with me, but even if it was just me and Ches, they still could have gotten a hold of me. And that's also a cost, as I mentioned before. So what it comes down to, it is, to me, the temple was very stressful. It was an expense that I had to plan for, I had to save for, I had to plan and budget and spend that money on going to the temple, to sit in the dark and to be bored and everything for several hours when I had kids and other things that I needed to spend that money on. And so it was not worth it for me. It was very, very difficult for me to justify and to be told constantly that the temple is a place you needed to be, and also that you needed to love the temple, and to feel the guilt about not loving the temple and what am I doing wrong because I don't love the temple. Like, hopefully you can kind of see where I and probably a lot of other people are coming from, where we say that the cost of the temple is just too high. I hope that answers the question. Maybe gives some insight and like another perspective. And I don't know when I'll see you again. Hopefully very soon. I am really enjoying this. So if you have any questions, you have any comments, please feel free to comment. Leave that in the comment section, in DMs. You're welcome to email me. My email is Brae, BRAE .wordsofx, that's EX, Mormon @gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. Again, thank you so much for all your support and all your comments and all your time. You have a wonderful day.